All right, guys, welcome to the second episode of the Crescent Review. Thanks for joining us. I'm your co-host Horace.
I'm your co-host Amar.
Okay, so we're just recapping the main geopolitical events concerning Middle East, North Africa, Pakistan. So let's get into it. A lot of crazy stuff happened, so it's a lot to go over. So this is a broad overview of our agenda. So first, we're going to start with Pakistan. There were some military clashes with the TTP as usual. There's an IMF review of our loans, and then one major news story was the Pakistan-Saudi alliance. And then in Qatar, we had the Israeli airstrikes on the Hamas leadership, which kind of jolted the region. And then we had Iran. There's some strikes and protests, and then they're still trying to reeling over the sanctions impact, as well as their economic crisis going on. And then also Turkey, we got major protests. The economic outlook we'll go over. And then obviously Palestine, the incursion to Gaza City is continuing. People are being evacuated, and then you also have people in the West Bank being arrested and basically stripped of their rights, which has been going on for the past 80 years. And then just recently today in Poland and Estonia, there was a major airspace violation by Russia, flying their jets over NATO territory. So let's start. Amar will take over here.
Yeah, when it comes to Pakistan, there's a couple of army operations that killed 45 TTP fighters. Approximately 19 soldiers lost, which is understandable, especially given the nature. Right, this isn't like Israel and Gaza. They're gonna use their special ops soldiers to get in there and infiltrate and take out like militants. Right, they're not just gonna blindly carpet bomb their own territory. So yeah, that's why there's like a significant loss of soldier life. Obviously, more TDP militants are gone. Uh, Afghanistan has been caught harboring them, right? So Pakistan has multiple times like struck Afghanistan directly in order to eliminate high value targets, right? But that's where kind of like a lot of their safe havens are in Afghanistan. IMF review underway. Policy rate is at steady 11%. If things continue at the current pace, we'll graduate. I'm from like the IMF within 2 to 3 years. At worst, it'll be like 5 to 7. If things don't go well, if there's like a ton of floods and natural disasters, right, causing more economic strife. Another important fact right here. Another important development. I think it happened yesterday. On the on the 18th was Saudi and Pakistan enter a NATO-like defense deal. An attack on one will be an attack on the other. Yeah.
Yeah, so that is a massive news story. I'll go into that in detail in the upcoming slides. But first, let's go over the TTP region. So, Amar, you can talk about what does the map represent? What's really going on here? Give like a quick.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. If you can see like that white line right in the middle where it says Fatah, North Waziristan Agency, South Waziristan Agency, and then
So
on
right here.
Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, yep, right there, yep, you got it. And then you go up where it says Khyber Pakhtunkhwa SWAT district, right there. If you can
Yeah.
like circle that as well. Yeah, so those are like the key areas that we're looking at. So those used to be like, um, yeah, that's where your core Taliban influences. At one point in time, the Taliban used to rule this territory between 2007 to 2014. They actually used to rule this territory. Um,
Yeah.
which is kind of insane, especially if you look at like Swat district. It's not very far from Islamabad. It's only 100 kilometers from Islamabad. It's pretty central to the country, especially in KPK district. But yeah, and then you can see like right where the heartline of the Taliban is. Right, you can see especially Helmand, Kandahar, um, Paktika, Khost, right on the border. Right, that's where you have like a lot of these guys, right? And they cross over the border. Fata used to be like a completely unregulated area, which is why the militants could really thrive there. Now it's like brought into like the larger Khyber Pakhtunkhwa district, so it's a lot more centralized now. So they don't have like the same agency. But yeah, let's go to the next slide.
Yeah.
Yeah. So recent clashes like army ops killed 45 TDP fighters, cross border escalation. Yep. Estimates range from 8 to 12,000 fighters, core fighters, much larger than the BLA. BLA is like 1,500 people,
Okay.
but also associated with the TTP militancy is about like 30,000 other like fighters. They're generally irregulars. Right? Maybe they're like people with ideological sympathies to the TTP. But yeah.
Okay. So you said back in like 2007, they basically controlled that territory for some time. Why? So how did the Pakistani military just let that slide? Like, didn't
Yeah,
they?
so you gotta understand, like the Pakistani military is very Punjabi focused, very elite Punjabi focused as well. Like specifically Rawalpindi, Islamabad, that's really where they care, you know.
Okay.
Um, and because of that, like they'll let other areas slide into neglect. Right? They wake up from Rawalpindi, they look outside, and they're like, "Oh, hey, Pakistan, kitna pyara hai," right? Like, look at how beautiful Pakistan is.
Yeah, and then Karachi people in Karachi can't even drink water.
Yeah, it's like, bro, it's like those guys, like like the mayor of Karachi, right? He recently got like pushed on a dating show, or not on a dating show, on a late night TV comedy show, right? And the guy was like, the guy's from North Nazimabad, and he's from Gulshan, actually. I think Tabish is from North Nazimabad, or sorry, from Gulshan, and he was like, yeah, like, hey man, you like live in like such a nice, lavish like apartment. Like you, of course, you wake up in Clifton and you're like, oh, everything's perfect, right? But please come with me and visit Gulshan. Please visit Orangi town. Please come
Oh,
with me. I'll show you
orangutan.
like actual Karachi. Like when you talk about Karachi, like we don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
When Karachi is doing so well, we don't know what you're talking about. Please actually visit the core of Karachi, and not just Defense and Clifton. So yeah, no, it's a problem, right? Like a lot of like the elite space only care about their own specific area. Rawalpindi to Islamabad, Miawali, right? Um, and then they kind of neglect like the rest of the country. Southern Punjab is suffering, right? Like they don't get as much development. I think a lot of KPK, like they kind of were just asleep on. They're like, oh, it's the Taliban. Like, oh, they're supposed to be our guys, right? Meanwhile, like the Taliban has their own like ideology, and the TTP specifically is more ISIS adjacent, right? It's not even like Deobandi, typical Deobandi, which is what the Taliban is. Um, and yeah, I mean it's different from BLA. BLA is secular nationalist, right?
Yeah. So what motivates TTP? Like, what are they trying to like? Let's say, what's their grand objective? Just like they just
um,
want to blow up shit, or like, what are they trying to do?
Nah, they think like everybody's kafir, bro. They think Punjabis are kafir. They think like Hindis are kafir, Maharis are kafir,
Goddamn, everybody
Kashmiris are
coffer.
kafir. Like they think like all of us are like like they just mass fear everyone, and then they're like we're actually the real Muslims, bro. You don't you don't understand, bro.
And
We're
this actually
actually
stems from Saudi, right? This is all Wahhabi ideology,
yeah,
essentially.
it's Wahhabi ideology that
So
like you mix it with with our with our
with our brain dead population.
yeah, and then that's what you get, bro. Like
That's
it's
crazy.
not great. And then obviously like years and years of like warfare in Afghanistan. And then I don't know, Imran Khan. No, I don't know. Imran Khan decided to take the idea to resettle a lot of these guys within Pakistan, and now we have to get rid of them. And a lot like when
Yeah.
we basically started like open border policy with Afghanistan, that was a horrible idea.
Yeah,
Horrible idea.
that's not a good idea. That's not a good idea.
And yeah, because we started the over like our open borders policy, then due to that, like so many people got through. Not just TTP fighters that were resettled, like tens of thousands that were settled in Pakistan, but lots of them sneaked in illegally because they just brought their like cousins over. Just like they completely unemployed, just bored and with a gun.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, they're just living off the land. Like even my grandpa in Karachi, he's like these goddamn Afghanis out here doing absolutely nothing. They're just reloading off the state. They literally
dude.
unemployed. They just live in the rickshaws. God knows what they're doing half the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude, like TDP aficionados, dude. Like it's pretty crazy.
Oh man,
Um,
yeah,
but yeah, no, you can see where like the like TDP attacks are kind of concentrated.
yeah,
At one point in time, like Karachi used to get hit because we have like a heavy like population from like KPK, right? I wouldn't
yeah,
even say KPK. We have like a heavy like Afghan population, right?
yeah.
Yeah, so I think that caused a lot of issues in Karachi. Like I mean, Karachi is historically, due to its diversity, low key suffered like a lot, right?
Yeah. No, because yeah, my grandpa said before partition, when it was just Sindhis living there, he said everything was amazing. Hindus, Muslims lived in peace. There were no problems. And then you had all the people from the different, like we had the Punjabis come in, you had the Muhajirs, and that kind of ruined the, I don't know, the cultural landscape a little bit. Caused a lot of tensions.
Yeah, I mean, like I remember my dad saying like after um you had like the Afghan Civil War, so many refugees came in and they brought the Kalashnikov culture in too, right? And as a result, it caused like, and to Urdu speaking Muhajir educated like population that was like super foreign to them, and they immediately started receding ground. Same thing with the Sindhis for that matter, right? And then so it took like the arming of these, and the army was never going to step in, right? So it took the arming of these ethnicities and actual violence to deter what were like refugees at one point from doing qabza to like half the city,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, it's kind of insane.
Yeah, let's move
Yeah.
on. So, yeah, this is just a figure of terror attacks. Thank God it's gone down over the years. But I don't know. Is it peaking up? This ends in 2022, but I don't know if the last 3 years if it's gone
I
up.
mean, 2020 was COVID. COVID
Oh
was,
yeah, yeah, that's
yeah, I think if we go 2023, 2024, 2025, I think we'll see like an uptick on 2024. I think really 2026 is the year that we should be looking at like what the actual situation is. Right now, I mean, I feel like this is just a little bit limited, but it shows like a good trend. I remember 2008, like I mean 2014, man. The Taliban used to like rule all those areas
yeah.
that we talked about.
Taliban 2010 20 to like 2014. They were on some King Von shit for sure.
Yeah, yeah, no, straight up, they were going crazy. They like had like alternate systems of tax, alternate system of government. Like the army was asleep, right? The army's a lot more vigilant now.
Yeah,
Even if state resources are a lot more spread apart.
for
But
sure.
anyways, we can skip to the next
Yeah,
slide. Yeah, rise in shrinking space, right? So like 2007 to 2014, you had TDP control large parts of FATA, right? Like the federally administrated tribal areas, right? That means Waziristan, Swat, Bajor. Actually, Swat isn't even like part of FATA. It was just its own thing. It was like, and that's only 100 miles from 100 km from Islamabad, right? It's like 60 miles. This is ridiculous, right? Bajor and Moman, those are like right on the border. That's completely understandable. They set up parallel courts, tax system checkpoints, even banned schools in Swat. I believe they blew up 400 schools within 2 years there.
wow.
Pretty insane. Uh, then obviously terror attacks, like the in Pehor, they they like shot up a school, killed 150 children. It's ridiculous. And then yeah, they had multiple military operations, right, clearing out different areas. Obviously, not everything went according to plan because they came back eventually, right, which is not
Yeah,
great. But yeah, I think it speaks to the elitist mentality, oftentimes within the army, just specifically not within the soldiers, but within the top military brass, right? Which, the North Punjabi, Lahore, like that area, and neither you or me are from that area, right? But I think we've seen in Karachi, like they kind of neglect, right?
yeah,
That's taking place, and I think a lot of it is that top brass just being like opening the window and seeing, oh, like Lahore is great, like
yeah. They live in like a
there's
a
nothing
weird.
wrong with Pakistan,
It's like a
man.
bubble.
Like, meanwhile, like everybody else is suffering.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think that's like that's definitely an issue, and especially because like in Swat specifically or different areas that we talk about, um, dude, people were begging like, "Yo, please, like, Khocha, please, like, can you guys like get these guys?" And anyone that was pro Pakistan would just get killed, right? Like sons of army soldiers, like old retired army soldiers, like some really like and they just get killed, right? So then you were left with people that are low-key sympathetic or that like are like scared, right? to like
Yeah.
lean one way or another, right? So that's like definitely like something that like the military will have to contend with. Now, Asim Munir seems like a different guy. Like he seems like he's making the right steps, but really cracking down hard. But man, like it's definitely like a foreign policy failure. You could argue from the army's perspective. Go back real quick,
Yeah.
just
Okay.
real quick. Yeah. But yeah, so they went through that. They went from ruling like whole areas to now just hit and run tactics. They're just like try and blow up a bridge, or blow up a highway. They,
Yeah.
that's kind of their thing. Anyway, so yeah, we can move to the next slide.
Yeah. So this is the kind of the main story for Pakistan for the week. So the Pakistan Saudi have they recently signed a strategic mutual defense agreement, which has essentially solidified a deeper military and deterrence partnership. This is pretty major. The reason for this really is because our next story about the Israeli airstrike in Doha. Obviously, the Gulf states are now, they're starting to worry, saying, "Hold up, this whole time we've been guaranteed security by America, but obviously, when it comes to Israel, America's always going to let them do anything they want in the region." So, the reliability of U.S. as a security guarantor is basically compromised. And so, some of the details about the deal under the Pact signed on September 17th. Basically says that any aggression against one country will be considered aggression against both, right? So that's like a mutual defense clause that's similar to the NATO's Article 5. And then like a quote from their like briefing that it aims to strengthen defense cooperation and joint deterrence, though both sides emphasize this is a defensive agreement and not an aggressive one, right? Obviously, Saudi Arabia stands to gain more, no doubt. Pakistan, I guess, Pakistan is just now it's just kind of acquiring more clout, I guess, in the region. People are like starting to look at Pakistan as a good guarantor. I think this comes after. This also obviously our war with India, winning, absolutely destroying those guys. That also helps as well. Um, but
Yeah, and I think like it adds for further deterrence. I mean, technically, India's Operation Sindoor isn't even fucking over. It's like suspended.
yeah,
And now that's gonna remain suspended forever. They're not gonna bother
yeah,
buy way too
dude,
much oil from Saudi to like even think about it.
they took
And
a generational L. They took such a generational L. That's just so
yeah,
crazy.
it fundamentally boosted our reputation. Like
Yeah.
it was incredible. Yeah, like
Yeah. So like yeah, this deal is basically like it kind of fits a broader narrative that Gulf states are diversifying their security partnerships and they realize they can't lean solely on U.S. guarantees. And we see similar moves elsewhere, more military cooperation inside the region. So I mean, what the things we have to see next is how exactly how will Pakistan share nuclear assets, right? Because this was part of the clause, which was very interesting that Pakistan's nuclear program will be made available to Saudi Arabia as needed under the agreement. Obviously, I'm not sure like in what case Pakistan would ever have to deploy nukes unless. I mean, I don't think Israel is stupid enough to like. I mean, maybe eventually in the future, like 10 to 15, they could launch like a major aggressive war to because the whole Greater Israel plan that they have like that's actually real. Like they're trying to do that. Maybe then nukes can come into the equation, but it's interesting how exactly will these nuclear assets be shared? Logistically, how does that work? And then maybe this is a good sign that maybe more pacts will be signed. Pakistan's defense minister has hinted that other Arab or Muslim nations might want to join similar defensive frameworks. So if we say UAE come in, Qatar, if all these different countries come in, this could be huge for Pakistan. Definitely boost our aura. So yeah, that's basically this story. And then finally, there's still the floods in Pakistan. It's affected like tens of thousands of people. It's just a shame that we have to deal with this in 2025. Like we don't have infrastructure. It's really sad to see this type of stuff happen. Other
I think we're
countries,
definitely suffering from climate change. I feel like a lot of it's that. I think a lot of it will have to be done with like building canals, having this like handled in a predictive manner, right?
yeah,
I think it's got to be proactive as opposed to reactive.
yeah. This is the only way you can do this is to get rid of the corruption and people gives like you have to incentivize the people in power to actually want to care about the average people because they're living in their mansions in Clifton with good roads. These guys they don't care about the rest of the population. That's the problem. Okay, so moving on to the Doha airstrike. So Israel struck a residential compound which was used by senior Hamas figures during ceasefire negotiations. So these guys straight up just said, you know what? I mean, it's insane. These guys are complete hypocrites. They say, "Oh, we're trying to go for a ceasefire," and then they kill the people involved in the ceasefire. Like it's just absolutely ridiculous. The incident involved 10 missiles, and there was like a building near a patrol station. 6 people were killed, 5 lower-ranking Hamas members, and 1 Qatari security officer. However, their main target was Khalil al-Haya, and he actually survived. The son of al-Haya was among the dead. And this is a picture of the aftermath. So, I mean, you could tell like this was a pretty precise strike. They were trying to kill the senior Hamas members, but it ultimately failed in their overall objective. And
Yeah, that's 10 missiles worth, which is kind of insane, and it only did that much damage.
Man, I don't know how they just entered their airspace and just got away with that. It's just insane.
Yeah, I mean, here's what they realistically did. They realistically wrapped around Arabia. If they did that, they might have just flew right over Jordan, and then they might have fired standoff missiles, meaning they didn't even have to necessarily enter Iraq or Qatari airspace, but there might be a chance they still did anyways. They have F-35s, and the Patriot systems did not perform at all. So I think that probably led to like the Saudi-Pakistan guarantee.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to Iran. Nothing really new. There's some massive protests and strikes. Obviously, because of the economic situation there, the sanctions, people's pensions are not really livable. There's just insane inflation, general economic collapse, so people are protesting the government. So we'll see how they react to that. And then there's a raid on a teachers' union meeting. Dozens were arrested or interrogated, and the prominent union activist Masoud Farhekte remains detained. And then the snapback sanctions. The UN Security Council refused a resolution to prevent the reimposition of sanctions, which means that the sanctions restored under the 2015 nuclear deal will return on September 27th unless Iran meets required conditions, right? Obviously, they don't want Iran to have nukes, which is, I mean, it's kind of unfair. You can't really force a country to comply. And then this is like a timeline of their sanctions. So in 2015, this was when the JCPOA was signed under the Obama administration. But then Trump withdrew it in 2018 and then, hit them with insane sanctions that just completely destroyed their economy, which kind of forced them to pivot towards the East in China and Russia. And then under the Biden administration, there were some talks to try to restore the deal, but Iran was extremely skeptical and kind of refused. And then recently, the UN Security Council failed to block the reimposition of sanctions, so full sanctions are going to snap back again, unless Iran complies with monitoring. I don't think Iran will comply. I think after what happened in June with Israel, they are very skeptical of the West and they don't trust them at all. I mean, I don't blame them. I wouldn't either. So, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's weird. Like I think they should really work on. I don't know. Okay, here's the problem with Iran. They were betting on India being the next China, but India dropped them for the West. And now they're kind of more or less ally-less, right? I mean, Russia is supposedly their ally, allegedly, but Russia is so caught up in Ukraine. They've lost over 1 million people now. So they're full speed ahead, and they were supposed to, Iran was supposed to get Su-35 years ago, and Russia just can't make deliveries on them because, well, one, like, they're sanctions, but even ignoring the sanctions, they don't have the chips. They don't have the production capability to produce these jets en masse, especially with how much they've lost. So I think that's huge. So there's the only one that really could help them was China, but they abandoned China for India, right? Which is completely ridiculous. And I think it goes to see how Muslims are not on one page because India is a Hindu fascist, anti-Muslim government.
Yeah.
And they were, in essence, they kind of used like Bollywood washing to, in essence, convince not just the Iran government, but the average Iranian of oh, hey, we got a burgeoning middle class, we're a rising superpower, hitch your wagon to us, and then that ended up falling apart. Also recently, India had worked to co-develop a port with Iran called Chabahar. That is also prone to sanctions now. That's not like under sanctions relief anymore.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that gives more traffic to Pakistan's Gwadar port, which is good news for Pakistan. But yeah, so they messed up, right? They should have went to China and they didn't, right? And that's on them.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. So going on to Turkey. So there was a economic program forecast inflation at 28.5%, which is a decrease of 16% from 2020 in 2026, and they're aiming for single digits by 2027. And then domestically, there was a detention of 48 individuals. CHP's district mayor Hassan Mutlu, and a corruption probe, and there were raids across 72 locations. And Turkish stocks rallied when the court delayed the controversial case against CHP leadership. The BIST 100 index saw a jump over 5%, and the Turkish lira strengthened somewhat. And then there's also the authorities arrested hundreds of Islamic State suspects in raids across 38 provinces. And there's been a seizure of Can Holdings media companies under investigations for fraud, tax evasion, and money laundering. So that's pretty much Turkey. This is it. You can see this chart here. Is their Turkish economy is actually expanding. They're doing a little better now. So you can see on the left is the percentage, their GDP percentage, and then the years. So we've gone. It's up 3.5% Q4, which is pretty solid. Okay, moving on to Palestine. Pretty much the same. I mean, Gaza City's under very heavy bombardment by Israel. Many neighborhoods completely destroyed. You guys probably saw the videos of them. They're destroying all the main, like the highest buildings in the city, which is used to house a lot of people, and they're even bombing tents. I mean, it's just insane. Mass displacement, evacuation orders to move south. Major roads are being closed, and then hospitals near collapse. There's shortage of water, food, basic medical supplies. So, I think over 300,000 people just in the last few weeks had to evacuate the city. So yeah, you can see an image. Just constant bombardment, hundreds killed every single day. And then in the UN, there was a draft resolution for the sixth time that would demand an immediate and permanent ceasefire and the release of hostages. And the U.S. Deputy Morgan Ortagus said the text did not go far enough in condemning Hamas or recognize Israel's right to defend itself. It's so absurd. I mean, this doesn't make any sense. And they basically vetoed it. I mean, the UN is a joke of an institution. I don't know why people even take it seriously anymore. But yeah, that's Palestine. Okay, you can take over this part.
Yeah, so this is huge development. Russia versus NATO. This, like 10 years ago, would not have even been a conversation, which is kind of insane. Okay, so on September 9th to the 10th, about between 9 to 23 Russian drones entered Polish airspace in multiple locations. Poland's scrambled jets used air defenses, had to close airspace around supports. Key thing is, nearly half of them made it through, right? Which is ridiculous, right? Especially, you would expect NATO to have a better defense than Ukraine. That's not true. I think a lot of these NATO countries decide to send all of their air defense and heavy machinery to Ukraine, which leaves a lot of them a little naked, right? And I think that's what's happened here. And I think what Putin's trying to do is he's trying to get these guys to get their equipment back from Ukraine, so it's easier for him to push through Ukraine, right?
Oh,
And
that's the strategy. Oh, that makes sense.
yeah, and I think he's also testing like how far is NATO willing to go, because Spain does not care what happens to Estonia, right? Estonia is right on the border with Russia, right? And they are a small country. Same thing with Lithuania, the Baltic states, and they're terrified because they cannot withstand a Russian assault at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, what's even crazier, that was Poland, right? And only a couple days later, man, only like a week later, 3 Russian MiG-31s armed with hypersonic Kinzhals entered Estonian airspace. Not just near the island, Vainlu Island, they actually hovered for 12 minutes above the capital, which is insane. 12 minutes is an eternity, and especially with how small Estonia is. That's an eternity in like the fast speed jet dynamics, right? That's insane. That's a long amount of time. That's no joke. They say they flew without plans, and they said they had their transponders off, and they didn't respond to air traffic control. Um, Once again, this seems like just a test, right? They were escorted out by Italian F-35s, right? But things are getting much hairier, especially if, like, let's say those MiG-31s had hit use those Kinzhals, hit Estonian air bases. That would be it. That's Estonia gone pretty much. Especially if the Russians ran their troops over the border. Um,
Yeah, I don't think Putin would do that. I don't think he has any, because he frames this as a defensive war. He say, okay, NATO has been pushing eastward since the collapse of the Soviet Union. I can't let that happen. They're threatening to take over Ukraine, so
Here's
I
the
have to do
thing.
something, right?
Here's the thing. Let's be real. NATO expanded further. They turned the Baltic Sea into like a NATO lake, right? Like after Putin started his invasion in Ukraine, Finland joined NATO, Sweden joined NATO, and Sweden has like a lot of like military like production that it produces. Like it's no joke. They create one of the best jets in the world, like the Saab Gripen, right? Like excellent jet, and they sell. That's where a lot of South America gets its firepower from. Like Brazil, they buy all Gripens. It's actually really impressive. Yeah. So like I'd argue it's backfired on Putin, and I think Putin's trying to test like there's no way like these Ukraine by themselves are this strong. Like how much equipment are these guys getting? And so he tests like Poland and Estonia and Lithuania, and like there's nothing to stop him there, right? So he's like, oh, okay, so these guys really just played their hand fully in Ukraine. What if I just like Estonia and Latvia are right there? What if I just like run on my troops over the border? There's no way these guys can stop me, right? The only thing that holds them back is like, hey, like a full NATO retaliation, not great, right? Not looking forward to that. Um, Furthermore, I think he is trying to divert some troops. Like, hey, like you guys are so scared about like Ukraine. Shouldn't you be scared about your own countries? And I think that's really spooking NATO, right? So both of the countries invoked Article 4. If one country does it, I mean, Turkey's done it in regards to Syria multiple times and terrorist attacks. And NATO would begrudgingly come together, but now they're all super vigilant. They're like, okay, like two countries invoking Article 4 is a big deal. And Article 4 is like, hey, we need to talk about this. This needs to be discussion. Article 5 is direct war.
Hmm. Got you. I think that's the last story we have for the episode,
Yeah,
right?
just clicking one through. Yeah, so that's yeah, that's the damage caused by one of the drones. Um, yeah,
Wow.
it's no joke. Like, and whenever this happens, Russia pretends like it had no clue that where they had no clue where the drones came from. It's actually hilarious.
That's pretty funny.
Um, but yeah,
Yeah. All right. Well, that's the episode for this week.
yeah. Thank you
Appreciate you
guys so much for
guys.
listening.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. And yeah, we're hoping to make this more consistent. Do like a weekly episode, and we'll think of better ways to make it more engaging and interesting. But we're just starting off, so it'll take some time. But yeah, thanks for listening, and see you guys later. Bye.
Sounds good.